If you are able to generate bodhicitta, it will be the cause of every happiness for yourself and others, and all the suffering you encounter in your daily life will be dispelled. Whether we and our fellow beings experience happiness or suffering, whether we have peace or violence in the world, depends entirely on the condition of our minds. The mind is what determines whether there will be happiness or suffering. Our states of mind are what makes our actions negative or positive. Therefore, may those who have not already generated this excellent and precious noble mind work very hard to develop it. May those who have already generated bodhicitta try their best not to impair it, growing hard to increase love and compassion so that it continues to grow. Trilshik Rinpoche. Welcome to episode 42 of the 12-Step Buddhist podcast. Feliz Navidad 2018. Well, as we come to the end of the year, let's think about compassion or bodhicitta. If you were able to generate bodhicitta, so what does it mean to generate bodhicitta? And I wrote about this in the very first book, the 12-Step Buddhist, back in 2009, in terms of the two levels. So we have the level of aspiration, and then we have the level of actual, practical doing. So in the level of aspiration, we can say, hey, look, I realize a few things. I've got a couple of awarenesses here. And basically, in the typical addict mind, everything is everyone else's fault. We can always blame others. It's always an external, what they call in psychology, the external locus of control. Everyone's against me, and this may be true because we do create a lot of havoc. But the opposite, this is the opposite of Dharma. So in the Dharma teaching, in the teachings on karma, we understand that everything that we experience is the result of some previous action. How far previous? Who knows? Could go back a really long way. Could go back millions of lifetimes. What do we do about that? We can't necessarily, if we can't see the cause, sometimes we don't feel that there is any connection, right? Well, I've been good. I was good today. I was good in the past 5 minutes. I was good this week. I haven't done anything bad recently. But if we understand the teachings on samsara and the infinite cycle of suffering, if we understand that what the teaching is about is going back to a beginningless beginning, we're going back to a time before anything can be traced. So the accumulation of merit or negative karma, in this sort of body, in the body that we inhabit now, the body, speech, and mind that we inhabit right now, we have, this is the manifestation of karma. So cause and effect, the seed and the fruit, right? So we are humans because from one perspective, in the Precious Human Rebirth teaching, we are, embodied with the opportunity to practice Dharma, to learn, to cognize, to have intention. None of the other conscious beings that I know of have intention. Change intention, change karmic result. So the whole idea of generating bodhicitta is to be able to take responsibility, is the point I'm getting back to. Take responsibility for everything that happens in my life by owning it and creating a new cause, creating a better cause, creating a cause for liberation, a cause that is not suffering. So that's what we talk about, and ways of generating the bodhicitta or the compassion that we're talking about begin with just realizing, hey, if I do change my intention, if I change the way I'm viewing things, the perspective that I have, the way I orient myself to people, one second. Hey guys, quiet down, guys. Dog sitting over the holidays. So this is the generation of bodhicitta. So there are a lot of different ways of looking at it, but just the idea is that, hey, I get it, and I'm going to try to do better. Hey, I get that cause and effect, and I'm going to try to create a new cause, and the cause is compassion. And it says it will be the cause of every happiness for yourself and others. Okay, ultimately, this may take some time. This is not an instant solution. It could be an instant solution if you're instantly enlightened as soon as you see an image of the Buddha, or as soon as you hear the title of a teaching, or as soon as you meet a master. If you're instantly Buddha, then you have that karma. So it's the seed, and then there's the secondary cause. So the secondary cause causes it to come to life. So you've got a dormant seed, and then you've got a cause. So you've got the karmic potential in being a human body and having human rebirth, and then you've got the teaching of the Buddha in this dimension, on this planet. You know, there's not a Buddha everywhere in the cosmos. Some aspects of the cosmos are dark, you know, like infinitely. There's no Buddha. There's no solution. There's no healing. There's no hope. You know, so we have this opportunity, and we try to practice gratitude around it. And, you know, we can, you know, choose to have a different intention. Okay, well, I wish I could have a different intention. I know I'm an asshole. I know I don't give a shit about anybody else. I know I'm just totally in my own suffering, and it doesn't matter what I do, and I'm powerless and helpless and hopeless, and I'm just an addict who's, you know, the victim of circumstances. Okay, I get all that thinking because I get clean and sober, and I start to do an inventory process. I start to look at what's, you know, what my patterns and tendencies are, and then I might say, okay, well, I wish I could have a better heart. I wish I could care about others. How do you do that? You can think about what you really do care about. You know, think about your puppy or your family member or your baby or your mother or whatever it is. You think about the thing, and if you can't, and if you don't have that, if you're a psychopath that doesn't have the ability to have compassion or feeling for others, I don't know what to tell you. You know, do some actions. You know, I'm not trying to treat that particular situation right now. So I am saying, though, that most people are wired for compassion, you know, naturally. So it will dispel all the suffering that you encounter in your daily life. You know, this is to the degree that we can practice it, to the degree that we can be mindful of compassion. And it starts with self-compassion. It starts with stillness. It starts with being able to get still and notice our experience and be present to everything as it arises, and really, really, really be in the open ocean of infinite space and notice the original energy, the original intention. And that, my friends, takes a lot of years and a lot of work and a lot of practice. At least it has for me. I've been doing this for, I don't know, since the 80s. So, and I feel like the other day I felt like I was barely starting to understand something for a second. You know, so it takes time. So moving on with the teaching, whether we and our fellows experience happiness or suffering, whether we have peace or violence in the world, depends entirely on the condition of our minds. So, you know, are we in fit spiritual condition, as we say in AA? Are we in fit spiritual condition? Have we taken a sufficient inventory? Have we looked at ourselves? Do we understand our character, our flaws, our defects, our strengths? You know, have we been honest about it? Have we really gotten naked, as we used to say? To really understand the raw truth about what we're emanating, what we're creating. We can't see what we're creating if we don't sit still. We can't see that we're creating if we don't be still. So all compassion, all bodhicitta arises from emptiness. Think about that. You got to get still and notice infinite presence. And bodhicitta is said to come in two stages. You know, there's the relative and the absolute. Here I am in the condition of suffering, cause and effect, karmic dimension, desire realm. Things happen for a reason. There's a reason before the reason and a reason before that, and it goes back You can't even trace how far back it goes. I mean, we can meditate on that dependent origination, you know. And, you know, if you start to develop the cities, we start to develop the ability to perceive our past lives. These are written in the teachings. I don't know anybody who has that. I've heard of people who have these experiences, but you know, we can see back. We can see how relative is. You know, we can see how infinite causation is. But this is so the teaching on karma is the first level. The first level. Then there's the teaching beyond karma, which is beyond the comprehension of most people's capacity or mind, beyond what most teachers will teach you. You know, and I don't get into it too much. It's just to say there is the relative, that's the cause and effect realm. And there's the absolute, which is undifferentiated timeless awareness. Undifferentiated. There's no thing separate from another thing. There's the whole material space, you know, the whole material dimension. There's the energetic vibrations and the strings and the, you know, the quarks and the quantums, you know, all the stuff that we analyze and theorize about with science, physics, calculus, and every possible computation that we can to try to figure it out. It's all energetic. And then there's the space of Dharmakaya, which is infinite presence. Beyond cause and effect. There's a teaching beyond cause and effect. Most Buddhists will shit their pants if you talk like that. Sorry, you know. A lot of people think Buddhism is just one thing. Most people don't realize that there is a spectrum of teachings. So, anyways, talking about bodhicitta, talking about compassion, talking about it as a way of creating a good cause. If you think about the Four Noble Truths, you know, here we are. Life is suffering. Suffering has a cause. If you want to change the result, change the cause. There's a path that leads to cessation of suffering. It's a noble eightfold path, so on and so forth. That's one Four Noble Truths, sutra teaching, one level of teaching. First introductory teaching. First level, day one. Day one, start there. Day one, if you get that, you can be a Buddha. You know, there are more than one turning of the wheel of Dharma. However, there is more than one Buddha. There's more than one Buddha. There's more than one teaching. You know, but we start here, day one. The mind is what determines whether there will be happiness or suffering. Our states of mind are what make our actions negative or positive. So work hard if you haven't. You know, if you already have it, try not to impair it. If you already have bodhicitta, try not to impair it with your shitty attitude, you know. So I had an experience this morning, you know. I'm in the more or less Hispanic neighborhood here in San Diego. When I say more or less, I mean more. I'm less. I'm the only non-Hispanic in the neighborhood. Okay, so this is it's a good price. It's good, you know, good space and everything. I got a guy around the corner. There's no parking. There's like 50 cars everywhere. It's like just packed. People park everywhere. You can, on the red zone, wherever they can. So there's a guy out there around the corner I parked a couple weeks ago. And he came out and he had like 4 feet in front of him. But I parked behind him, just close enough so that I didn't, you know, block his driveway, where there was a kind of a covered car anyway. So I wasn't blocking anything. So I went to get my car. The guy came out and started screaming at me, cussing me out, calling me every filthy name. And I was like, sir, you're being rude. I'm like, if you continue being rude, we're going to have to handle this, you know, in a more professional manner, right? So I wound up having to call the cops and say, hey, look, you know, I'm just not going to be harassed in my neighborhood. I have the right to park on the street. Please speak to the guy and tell him that, you know, chill the fuck out, basically. So they did. They went over and they talked to him. And then the cops said, hey, look, try parking away from his house. I said, well, if I can, I will. I mean, if there's one space within 3 blocks, that's where I'm parking. And I'm legally obligated or entitled to park there, you know. She said, well, avoid the guy if you can. I said, okay, I'll do that. So I have avoided that. Even though there was a space last night in front of his house, I parked down the street and I went to go teach my yoga class this morning, and I went and walked past his house. I kind of went around it, and I hear this like, pinchy motherfucker, fucking whatever the hell he was saying to me. fucking faggot, you know, piece of shit, fucking tattletale, all this. Like, I'm like, bro, you know. I immediately felt like I was in 4th grade when I was ganged up on by a group of guys, you know, the same tone, you know, in the same accent, in the same words, the exact same fucking words, right? When those guys, you know, jumped me and I was helpless. And I'm not helpless now, but, you know, what do I have? I'm a yogi, you know, I'm a Buddhist, I'm a practitioner, I'm in recovery, I'm on a spiritual path. I'm late for my yoga class. I gotta go. Didn't say a word. I figure I'm just going to be empty of causality. I'm just going to be free of suffering. I'm just going to not engage. I'm not going to be a target. I'm not going to give the person something to hold on to. If they come near me, if they harass me, I'll call the cops again. I'll get a restraining order if I have to. Because that's me protecting myself. Because if the police come out, I'm going to jail. They're going to look at me and they're going to say, turn around, put your hands behind your back. You know, because that's just the way it's going to go. That's my karma. And, you know, it hasn't happened in my life. I don't have a criminal record, but I'm pretty sure it would happen, you know, especially if you're in any kind of fight. So why am I going to get in a fight over a stupid parking space? Why? But then again, do I have the self-esteem and the self-compassion to protect myself? See, to take a stand without being aggressive, to take a stand by saying, hey, no, you're not allowed to speak to me that way. You're not allowed to intimidate me on a public street. This is not the ghetto. This is not gangland. This is not the, you know, grammar school, you know, fucking schoolyard, bro. But I didn't say a word, and I haven't called it in to make a second complaint yet because I just basically don't have the energy to deal with it today. You know, if it happens again, that's the first. If it happens again, I will stop and make the call at that time, and I will put a stop to it legally. But that's the idea, is, are we generating violence? I mean, do I turn around, you know, as an addict filled with rage, you know, filled with the victimization, filled with the abuse, the trauma, the PTSD, you know, what would that animal do? You know, turn around and attack, you know, attack verbally, attack physically, you know? I mean, there's a lot of people in jail right now who aren't practicing bodhicitta. You know, so what can I do? I went and taught my yoga class and I talked about it, you know, a little bit. You know, doing my podcast, I'm talking about it a little bit. So this is the idea, is that I have the opportunity to create more suffering for myself and others, or to let go. And just let go and practice compassion. And I'm not, honestly, of the attitude to say, oh, the poor guy, maybe he has, you know, maybe he has hemorrhoids today. I don't give a fuck. If you're an asshole and if you're rude and you're aggressive and you're attacking, then you need to go to jail. Period. End of story. Get off the street. I don't have any patience or tolerance for it. I don't allow myself to be a victim. But, same token, do I want to create more harmony? Do I want to live in peace? Do I want to have an open space? So I figure if I encounter the guy again, I'm going to treat him basically like, you know, like a sick person, like we say in AA. You know, like if this was a child throwing a tantrum in the street, you know, are you going to scream at him and beat him? Or are you going to say, okay, come on, you know, calm down, have a breath, you know, and if he's out of control, you're going to have to get some help. That's that. So, you know, Feliz Navidad, happy holidays, you know, whatever your celebration is, celebrate with compassion. You know, we're starting a new program, Compassionate Recovery. You can grab a meeting format. I have a pretty decent meeting format that I have posted up on the website. The website is called CompassionateRecoveryProject.com. You can read about it there. This is a new book that will be out at the end of 2019. I'll be putting out the 12-Step Buddhist 10-year anniversary edition first. That'll be in the fall. There will be a chapter on compassionate recovery at the end of that book. And basically, just looking to get as many different types of meeting guides and formats up there as possible. The idea behind compassionate recovery is that it's a universal, inclusive, trauma-informed approach to recovery. So we deal on the spectrum of addiction, anywhere from the problematic attachment to the severe addiction. So anyone is welcome. So you don't have to be an alcoholic only, or a drug addict only, or sex or gambling or whatever. At the same time, it is open, but at the same time there are parameters, so that when we speak, when we share in meetings, we do have a topic, and we do have the right to ask people to come back to home base. Because if you've ever been to, like, say, an ACA or Al-Anon meeting, sometimes they just go on and they go right into their groove, and they're just going to go for 15 minutes nonstop, babbling, stream of consciousness. It's like, okay, let's have a little focus. Let's have a little bit of, meditation on a topic. So the meeting format so far has a meditation, a little focused breathing meditation, introduction of a topic from any healing literature. So it's not like AA where you have to have conference-approved literature, and sharing on the topic. And based on compassion, based on learning to get still and silent within oneself, and to acknowledge one's own suffering and the suffering of others, and to begin to heal. So it's universal in that any tool can be used from any tradition or system. It's not just Buddhist. It's not just Christian. You could use this in a Muslim group. You can use this in a synagogue. You could be in a church, in a treatment center. So I'm going to be creating some trainings with a couple of different colleges on this. So I'm working on that right now. Hopefully that will be out sometime this year, where you can get certified as a facilitator to basically understand the full spectrum of recovery, the full spectrum of addiction, the science of compassion, the brain science, the neuroscience, everything that's gone into that research, and what we know about it, what works and what doesn't, some different therapeutic approaches and styles and so forth, and ways to be a mentor for people that are entering into that space, so that you can have a little bit of guidance and a little bit of training, and kind of get it off to a good start. So it has a lot of potential. If you love this idea, let me know. If you want to contribute, if you want to put a blog post up, if you want to put your feelings and thoughts about what's needed, if you have books, resources, therapies, spiritual teachings, anything that you think would be a good place that you'd like to see have a place in recovery for people, send it to me. You can be a guest contributor on the CompassionateRecovery.com or CompassionateRecoveryProject.com website. So I'm already working with a couple of different clinicians. I've got 2 PhDs that I'm working with on this to develop some approaches which are systematic. But it's not going to be so regimented that anybody can't do it. So, this is a community-based thing. This is also a thing that can be done in clinical settings, in treatment centers, and so forth. So I feel like we're off to a good start with it. I just want to get the ball rolling now, because I will be working on these trainings and developing these meetings and meeting formats over the coming year. But it's a good time to get started on it right away. So DarrenBLittlejohn@gmail.com is my email address. You can go to the 12stepbuddhist.com always for the latest. Everything's connected there. And Instagram, 12step Buddhist. That starts with the number 1 and the number 2. Okay? So that was a little bit of hectic background noise going on during this podcast. I am in my home, and I've got a big dog on one side, 2 small dogs on the other side, and 3 dogs in the house, and a cat in the bedroom. So it's a holiday dog fest over here. At any rate, that's the beginning. Let's all talk about and cultivate and try to get on the wavelength of understanding karma and understanding bodhicitta, and that we can have the aspiration, we can have the wish, and we can have the action. We can actually do it. If we don't feel like we're capable of doing it, this is kind of like when I quit smoking cigarettes. I prayed every day for a year that I would quit smoking. I committed. I said it until it happened. And I relapsed, and I bought cigarettes and smashed them and threw them in the garbage and kept trying. Don't give up. Have the aspiration to be clean. Have the aspiration to have bodhicitta, the aspiration to have compassion, the aspiration to end suffering for all beings. Hey, that's a really big one. That's the bodhisattva, vow and path. But, we're not trying to get on that in this moment. We're just trying to talk about it and have a beginning. Anyways, you guys, ending the year here in San Diego 2018. Happy holidays, happy clean and sober Christmas and all that good stuff. We'll talk to you soon. Peace out and namaste.